Hey there, listeners. This is Terry Cowley, your host of the R.M.Williams Outback podcast. Thanks so much for being here and welcome to Season 3. Tiny Holly is one of WA's most sought-after auctioneers, whether of livestock or at a corporate gig. He has raised more than $45 million for charity, which is so impressive by any measure. That Tiny has done this through a life with dyslexia, depression, anxiety, type 2 diabetes resulting in the loss of both legs is pretty incredible. These challenges led to a new purpose, speaking up about mental health in order to help others. That's some introduction. Hello, Tiny.
Terry, how are you? Yeah, you've wrecked my story. I was going to tell you the real story about being frostbitten on Mount Everest and all those sorts of things. But yeah, no, look, that's me, Terry. And yeah, look, it's not something that you would look forward to as a child, but yeah, it's the hand that I've been dealt. So I've got to get on with it. Yeah. So, and look, no regrets whatsoever.
Maybe, Tiny, if we start at the beginning of your life. Now, tell me about the nickname Tiny, because I believe your name is actually Robert, but you don't really use it, do you?
No, I don't even reply to Robert most of the time, Terry. I was a very small baby and my nana picked me up out of the cot when I was 11 weeks old and handed me to Mum and said, "Come on, Tiny, Mum will feed you." And it stuck. And ever since then, I've been known as Tiny. But, of course, in Australia, we always think the opposite. So when I got to 174 kilos, everyone thought it was because of that. But it was a genuine, very small baby. And now everyone calls me that. So
you grew up on a farm in the Geraldton region.
Just out of Geraldton, there's a small community called Walkaway. All our family was there. My mum and dad, we actually lived in town, but I spent more time at the grandfather's farm, or grandmother and grandfather's farm. Yeah, as a child, playing polo and polo cross and riding our horses. So, yeah, I had the best of both worlds, you might say, as a young fella.
Now, school wasn't your real happy place?
Far from it. Look, primary school wasn't too bad, but once I hit year 8 at high school, it went pretty ordinary from there on in, Terry.
A lot of people say that, though, don't they?
Yeah. It's funny, we went from a small community school at Walkaway. There was only 56 of us, year 7s, and we thought we had it all. But once I got to high school, really, the teachers were quite almost bullyish, you might say. That's a word I use, except for a couple of them. Because of my learning difficulties with the dyslexia, I think they knew as much as we did about it. So I became the disruptive student, you might say, because I can't whisper. So I'd ask Terry sitting next door to me how to spell something, because the teacher'd say, look it up in the dictionary. Well, I had no idea whatsoever where to even start looking some of the words up, and put my hand up and ask for help, and, they'd continue to say that. So I'd ask Mary or Terry sitting next to me, and then I become disruptive and loud, and yeah, off to the remedial classes I went, sort of thing, because I couldn't learn.
Certainly wasn't much awareness of dyslexia back then, was there?
Far from it, really.
So you've talked about your grandfather's farm. You would have had a bit to do with horses there?
Look, horses was certainly my life for the first 20 years of my career. I played polo and polo cross, did the pony club as a young child. To be half reasonable at polo cross, and was playing A-grade polo cross at 16, and played with a lot with my good friends' parents more than the good kids, because I just had a bit of a skill and a bit of a gift. And yeah, look, it was a big part of my life. So absolutely really happy days when I was on top of a horse that became very, very good and quite popular in WA, and a lot of people knew him back then. So I was blessed.
Tell me about when you first wanted to become an auctioneer.
That's a funny story, and look, it's one that I'm so proud of. I was 11, and I had green shorts on and a red shirt, believe it or not, and the Auctioneer song came on the radio on 6GE in Geraldton, and I heard this song, and I said to my grandfather at the end of the song, I said, that's what I'm going to do. And he said, oh, Struth, it's going to be hard with your learning difficulties and all that sort of thing. I said, well, I think I can do it, and I know I can do it, and that's what I'm going to do. So from there on, we used to ride the horses every day, every morning, keeping them fit and that for polo and polo cross. And I'd just count the fence posts as we'd go along, 1, 2, and then I'd get a bit of patter into it after 2 or 3 months, and 2 years of down the track, I was sort of putting words and fillers and those sorts of things in between the fence posts. So it grew from there, but my grandfather backed me 100%. And then, here we are today.
Here we are indeed. But after school, you did other work first off. As a farmhand, you were interested in wool classing.
Because I couldn't get out of school quick enough, I went back for the last year because I had a fancy on a young girl. That's sort of stupid things you do back in them days, but I couldn't get out of school quick enough, really, and I went to work on a stud up at Sandhurst Stud in Northampton during the lambing and season and those sorts of things. The following year, I went on to be a wool classer because I thought it, might help me get a foot in the door in the next part of my life. So I went to TAFE as a younger, can't read, can't write type of person, but I went from being a remedial student at school to one of the top 3 in the class because I was interested in what I was learning. The teachers there were absolutely amazing. They couldn't give you more help, because I owned up about my dyslexia. They couldn't have been more help, and it was hands-on. So I was in a pretty good place, to be honest, and did all my homework and all those sorts of things and actually passed. So it was a big thing for me to pass a career achievement, you might say.
So later in the 80s, you did an elders traineeship.
So that came about in 1987. I think I'd knocked on elders and Wesfarmers at the time, their doors. I had people in the game that were in there batting for me, but there was just no vacancies coming up. And then in 87, they were looking for trainees. So I put my head in the ring and decided to get a few good references from some great people, and I've still got those references now.
Was this all with the sort of end goal of wanting to become an auctioneer?
Certainly, the bottom line was to get into the livestock game and the livestock industry because I hate using the word foot in the door these days, but it was a great way to get in there. And I had my interviews and all that in my hometown, and then I joined Elders and went to my first posting, which was away from home, which was a big move for me as well.
So you transferred to some different parts of WA.
So the first posting was a town called Mora. I spent 7 months there, I think. And then I went to Dalwallinu during the summer, which is no easy feat because it's a hell of a hot place. And I learned some merchandise there. I was sort of running the merchandise store while the stockies, etc., were on holidays. From there, I went to Midland, which was the first chance I got to do my auction. I was the veal auctioneer for 2 years, and then I got shifted to Albany. And then from Albany, I went back to Midland as a second auctioneer under one of the best auctioneers in WA, if not the best auctioneer. And then from there, I got posted to Harvey, which is here I am now. And I gave them 18 months and didn't really want to come down here at the first place. And then after 18 months, they wanted to shift me back. And I said, no, it's a pretty good spot right where I am.
And that's been home for some time now.
Yeah, so it's about 34 years now, Terry, and absolutely love Harvey. I say to people, if you don't live in Harvey, you're camping out. So it's a pretty good place.
And that's where you met your future wife?
Yeah, actually, Grace was the very first person I met when I come to Harvey, and I can remember the time and everything. It's a real romantic story if they ever make a film about someone. It was at 9:15 on the 28th of the 10th, 1991. It took her 5 years to come around, but yeah, look, here we are today. We've got a beautiful daughter and they're very, very happy.
How do you remember the time and the date so precisely?
I don't know, because Grace worked at the chainsaw and the still depot, which is also the fuel place. So I got into town at just after 9. I got a can of Coke, believe it or not, and to fuel up before my first port of call as the elders rep. And thank God I didn't marry the second person because he was an old farmer that was about 70 years of age. So, yeah, it's just one of those things I always remember. I remember some strange dates and times and those sorts of things. But, yeah, I suppose that's one part of my mind that's clicking over to support the other part that doesn't work.
So you stopped in Harvey. When did you become a fully fledged auctioneer?
I came to, like I say, in 91. Before that, I was the auctioneer at Albany, sale yards, and before that, I was at Midland as the auctioneer as well. So I suppose I got my licence in 88, but I did my first auction back in Mora in December 1987. under another auctioneer who was selling the sale and doing the major part of it.
Do you remember your first auction?
Remember it well because when he put me on, I wasn't expecting to go on when he put me on. So that was a bit of a surprise, you might say. And away I went on some nuts and bolts. And then there was a bloke behind me kept tapping me as if to say that he wanted to bid. Well, at that time, I didn't know what he was doing, so I asked him to stop. He said, no, I want to buy the bloody things. That's why he was tapping me. So I do remember it quite well. And, yeah, look, it's funny down the track, we didn't have anything to record or anything like that, but it was an interesting little chat that we had, and he ended up being a pretty big buyer for the rest of the day on some sundries.
Was it nerve-wracking for you?
Probably was to a certain degree, but then because I went on quicker, so you didn't really have time to think about it now. And I suppose now, even to this day, I don't get nervous because it's someone's livelihood that we're mucking around with.
Do you think even back then there was a fair bit of showmanship involved?
Oh, I think so, because the people that I'd followed up until now, when I was outside the game and then when I came into it, they weren't show-offs, but they commanded respect, I suppose, when they were up there, and that was just one way that I wanted to take on as a professional role. And if you want to be good, you've got to follow the best and do what they do, I suppose, to a certain degree.
And how important is it to know your crowd?
Look, that's a big part, and even with the charity side of things, if you've really got to know who some of the bigger buyers are and the bigger players that are going to have a bid, if they buy it or not, that's another thing. But you do really need to know. And an old bloke said to me once at Midland, he said, you always know who's going to buy the first pen just about, and that will follow a sale all the way along. So it was something that was sort of put into us a little bit. So, yeah, knowing the crowd and knowing what's going around and knowing your items is very, very important.
So I believe you used some tricks to overcome your dyslexia as an auctioneer.
Yeah, I suppose I've been gifted. I say I've got a gift from God that, it has been given to me, and I've got a fairly quick wit, bit of a larrikin, I suppose you'd say, would be the best way to describe it. And that little bit of humour that can make or break, I say, it might get the crowd back, and if they've drifted away a little bit. So that little bit of humour or a smart, not a smart comment, but an interesting comment about the news or something like that, it certainly can help. And that's why I try and look at the paper every morning before a sale, because you might see something in there that, God forbid, Trump's done or elbows or something like that. There's always something that you can find out.
So you did leave being an auctioneer for a while and worked for a beef buyer, but you really wanted to get back to it.
Yeah, look, it was always there, Terry. I had a great job with E.G. Green and Sons here in Harvey, which is actually now owned by the Forrest family, which is quite interesting. And I went there for 8 years, but I then did a study tour of New Zealand after being nominated by one of the Green members. And that really changed my life. I met some interesting people that I never thought I would meet. And from there on, it just, we ended up selling veal that night at every speech that we did. And I was the lucky one to be able to do it. So it went from there, and I got back and I thought, well, I can do more than this. So away we went.
So you came back to being an auctioneer with a different company, but you eventually started your own business with the auctioneering.
Yeah, so I came back and I was offered a position with Landmark at the time, and it was a role that, involved most of the auctioneering in the southwest here. But in the back of my mind, there was still, I thought, a little vacancy as a professional company to do my charity work and some of the outside work that didn't involve livestock. So I started up part of the company is Mouth of the South Productions, which was quite fitting.
Mouth of the South?
Mouth of the South, yeah. So, and then the next one, the other company, which was interesting how I changed it, is Have Gavel Will Travel Auctioneering. And it was recommended to me that I should change my name because no matter where you are in the world, people always think South. So if I live in a certain place, say Shepparton, where you are, people above me in New South Wales wouldn't think I'd go there. And that was handed down to by Kevin Bloody Wilson, who's a personal friend of mine. And, he made me change it. Otherwise, he was going to buy the name and sell it back to me at a big cost. So it was a good thing that happened. And now have gavel travel is very fitting because I will travel anywhere.
I have to admit, I had to look up gavel.
Everyone says gravel. The amount of people that says gravel is incredible.
You don't want gravel.
No, definitely not. Not on my good car.
For those people who are like me and don't know what a gavel is, can you fill them in, please?
Gavel's the tools of my trade, I suppose, and I'm looking at my desk over there, which has about 25 of them. It seems to be a good present for an auctioneer. That
people keep giving you gavels, do they?
Yeah, we get a few gavels, and so the gavel's the hammer, I suppose. That's what a lot of people use, and
yes,
you're either a judge or an auctioneer. And when people call me a judge at the airport, when they see it in my bag, I have to play along with them for a bit, and then I've got to be honest with them, of course. That yeah, definitely not a judge.
I think we get a lot of that from TV crime shows, where the
exactly.
Judge is going, bang, case dismissed.
Yep. So yeah, exactly. Yep. It's well and truly used in those sort of functions.
So you mentioned your charity work you've done. That's obviously very important to you, and you've auctioned off so many different things, from dinner with West Coast Eagles players to cans of beer to a bag of air for $10,000. Can you enlighten me on that one?
Yeah, that was at a function. I think it was in Perth. It was either Perth or Kalgoorlie that we'd sort of run out, and one bloke said to me, he said, I know that there's someone in the crowd that had money to spend, but he couldn't buy anything that he wanted. And his company had given him X amount of dollars. I grabbed this plastic bag behind the microphone, the lectern thing, and I sort of wrapped it up and put a bit of air in it and then tied it up. And then we offered this bag of air, and it went for $10,000, and it was just, it brought the house down.
I bet.
With laughter. It was just so good, and this bloke got a standing ovation, and it was pretty special. So it was just, the generosity of a company that wanted to help. It was probably a kids' function or something like that, and they were there for the right reasons, and, we had to take their money.
I hope he did actually take his bag of air, did he?
Yeah, no, he took it, and it was bouncing around the table at one stage there with all his crew, so, yeah.
So we've talked a lot about your working life. Now, more, I suppose, personally. Tell me about when you're in your 20s and you had untreated type 2 diabetes and you mentioned before that you weighed a lot back then, and you weren't eating well, and you were pretty depressed. Yeah,
look, I was weight for age from when I was about 6 years of age, Mum and Dad used to say.
What do you mean by that?
So weight for age is 6 years of age and I was 6 stone. 8 years of age, I was 8 stone, and it continued on. My weight kept going. I was addicted to food, but food was also my very happy place. We didn't have much as kids, but we always had food on the table, and we always had the family around the table. So we had nothing, but we had everything is what I say. It's been a downfall for me because I love food so much. And so it kept going, and then by the time I got to 21 and 2, I was 21 or 22 stone. And when I got to 27, of course, I was 27 stone, which is 174 kilos. So I was a big lad, but I had a few health issues, you might say, at the same time. When you're 174 kilos, I had high cholesterol at 9.3 or 9.4. I had sugar diabetes, which I didn't want to have anything to do with. So I suppose I neglected that. Well, I did neglect it, not I suppose I did. I had one little devil on this shoulder saying that you can beat it by having more Coke and more, sandwiches and sausage rolls and those sorts of things. And I had the little angel on this one trying to talk me out of it. And of course, the two never met. So at the stage I went to the doctor, and I knew I wasn't travelling that well because I was always teary, and if I wasn't working, I was crying, which is, I didn't think it was quite right. I should have went earlier, but I went to the doctor, and as it turned out, I had cholesterol at 9.3, 174 kilos. My sugar diabetes was around 15 to 19 each morning, and it should be about 5 or 6. So that was uncontrolled. And my blood pressure, the highest it got to was 242 over 140 or something like that. And at the time, the doctor wouldn't let me get out of the rooms. So I went to hospital for that high blood pressure. And then, the next visit, I was crying in his rooms again. And he said, I think you have depression. And I thought, well, your 10 years at medical school have certainly paid off, because he saw 6 other people from my first consult because I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't talk to him properly. So he saw the other people, and then from there on, he he saw me and we worked it out and put me straight on medication. And touch wood, it's been, well, it hasn't been good, but it's been certainly a lot better treated. Probably saved my life with no dark thoughts and suicide notes.
Was it hard for you to accept help?
It was hard at first to get help, because I would say to my friends that I think I'm struggling, and they only saw one side of Tiny with the mask on. You know, I'd hop into a car to go to work after not wanting to get up, fuel up, get a chicken roll, 2 litres of Diet Coke, no, it would have been full-strength Coke back then, and a sausage roll, and I'd eat and cry all the way to a sale. It didn't matter where I was or how far away it was. I was a gibbering mess when I got out of the car, walk up the rail onto the sale yards, and I was a different person. But that was the mask.
You were acting, really, weren't you?
Yeah, literally acting, Terry, yes. And, you know, at the end of the sale, I would say to Billy Smith or Jimmy Bloggs, you know, geez, can you give me some help or give me some advice, because I think I've got depression. And then they'd say, oh, no, look at you, look what you did, you know, the prices were good, Billy was happy, and, you know, those sorts of things. But they didn't see as soon as I got back into the car, I'd start crying again.
That's really sad to hear, and I'm very glad to hear that you did get help.
Yeah, you got to. So I think getting help wasn't the hard bit for me. It was understanding what was going on, you know, because it was frightening, because I had written some suicide notes, and one particular time when it was going to happen, I got one phone call about 3:30 that afternoon to say, do you want to come for tea? And this couple were great friends of mine, but the timing of that phone call just fitted in, because I knew I'd have one good meal and then I'd be right, and, you know, maybe do it tomorrow. Well, that one phone call, it did save my life. Well and truly, that was one call coming in, and the call that I made out to Lifeline was the one that saved my life as well. So, you know.
So you mentioned your weight earlier. You also had gastric banding surgery to get that weight down?
Yeah, so the gastric banding came in 2006, and it really did a great job. I hit the deck running, I suppose you might say, and I lost about 50 kilos in the first little stint with the lap band, which was great. But to that side, there was a little downfall as well, because I lived on mashed potato just about. Of course, with all the carbs, and that wasn't doing the diabetes that flash. And because the diabetes wasn't controlled well enough because of my head, it led to circulation problems and those sorts of things. And then here we are, double amputee.
You didn't lose both legs at the same time?
No, the first time was 2020, and I got sunburnt on my toe on the 19th of December 2019. There's another date that I've remembered, and it got blistered. And from that blister, it got infected. And then turned gangrene, and from then the stuff was in the bone. So terribly ordinary sort of March, April for me in 2020. I lost one toe, and then I lost another toe 3 weeks later. And then 3 weeks after that, my mum passed away while I was in hospital. And then 3 weeks after that, they wanted to cut my little toe off and part of my foot. And I said, nah, chop my leg off, please, and give me a wooden leg and let me get on with it.
I was surprised to hear that. Like, I think most people would say save as much as you can, wouldn't they?
And that was the one way I wanted to look at it. But I was going back every 3 weeks, like I say, and to get it cut off. And they couldn't give me a point of where it would stop, if it would stop, other than, you know, way up on my, below my knee. I said, well, if you can give it to me up there and give me 10 or 15 years, it's a lot better than coming back here every 3 weeks to get, you know, 5 centimetres cut off or something like that, because I couldn't do anything. You know, I couldn't work and couldn't do anything while I was in hospital or on crutches.
You really wanted to rip the Band-Aid off big time.
Big time. I mean, all I wanted to do was work, walk and drive, and, you know, it wasn't going to happen the way that they wanted to do it. So there was 4 doctors. There was 2 that said yes and 2 that said no, and that's when I said, well, I'm the chairman and I get the last vote, so let's chop it off. And it was the best thing that I had done.
It must have been pretty disconcerting then to see your other leg going the same way.
Oh, that threw me around. You know, I'd done everything right. I'd lost more weight. My sugar diabetes was under control to the letter of the law. Top of my foot turned a little bit pink, not even as pink as your jacket. And the next day it had grown into similar to a blister or a blood blister. And then, the next day. So it took 2.5 days. I went straight to my friends at Fiona Stanley that had looked after my first foot. And then from there, the doctor just slightly touched it. It burst open and, so they originally cut half of the foot off that one. And then the next day it didn't look any better. So I said, well, I know someone that's lost one leg and got on with it really well, so let's do the same with the second leg. And, having looked back, did all the physio and all the treatment that needed to be, and, here we are, and I can walk, work and drive and do everything I can.
How do you do that? Do you have prosthetics?
So now I have 2 prosthetics, which are great. They give me no trouble. If I got long pants on and my RMs, people wouldn't know that I have a disability. It's one of those things that I've adapted to it, because I suppose I could either sit in my wheelchair and mope around or get on with it. And when I love work so much, I just had to make the move and get on with it. So the prosthetic legs are great. They're all branded up with West Coast Eagles and have Gavel Travel on them. So they're an eye-opener for most people.
How do they attach to your legs?
So they actually suck on. I wear a type of a wetsuit material that you roll on over your leg, and then there's a little seal that goes around the bottom, and you put your leg in and it sort of sucks together, and, very hard to come off.
You don't have discomfort with that?
No, I've had one little spell where a small cut came on my leg, and that was only from rubbing. And because it's under type of wetsuit material all the time, it gets very hot and it's sweaty, and it just wouldn't heal. So I had 3 days in my wheelchair and sat outside so the sun could get it and a bit of fresh air, and away we go. Back playing golf and doing everything that I need to.
Fantastic. I believe you do visit people in rehab to sort of share your experience.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. It's not something that I publicly put out there, or the physios do, but I always go and see the physios and the doctors that help me get to where I am now, which is a normal body, I suppose you might say. But I always go to the physio room and just see everyone. And quite often they'll say, oh, can you just go over there and have a chat to Billy Smith about nothing but about everything? So he hasn't been out of his chair for 3, 4, 5 days in the gym. He's sort of spat the dummy a little bit. So I'll go over and talk to him about anything, the weather or anything, but I distinctly don't talk about, come on, let's get up and do an exercise together or something. I always, just leave it in their court. But for some reason, I don't know whether it's because of my size or my stature or my, positive outlook, I suppose, on life these days. They always seem to do the right thing, and they say, well, how did you do this? So because I've got both legs off, I could tell them which way to do it. And, for 5 minutes or 10 minutes sitting with them, I quite often get the call that afternoon that, Terry got up and walked out of her chair and did the exercises. So she's that next step to being, whatever normal is these days.
They can't say to you, you don't know how I feel, can they?
No, that's right. And I think that's the beauty, Terry, that they can get psychs in or people that mean so well, but unless you've lived this experience, you can't. And It's one of those things, it's a gift of, just being me and being pretty happy with life.
You're a really active member of your local community, I believe.
Oh, I love, like I say, if you don't live in Harvey, you're camping out, but I'm a member of the golf club now that I'm back playing, and I've been on the committee there a few years ago. I was the former president of the football club here, and I was former president of the Italian club, of all things. And when I come to Harvey, I didn't want to come down because of all the Italians. I thought they'd kill me, but I ended up marrying one, and we speak a bit of Italian. And
why would they kill you?
Oh, all I've ever seen was the mafia movie, so I didn't know what was going on down here. Okay. But I suppose then I became one and president of the Italian club, and Grace is a full-blooded Italian, and we do all the family stuff and all that sort of thing together. And love it. So we have a bit of a coffee club as well in town, which we meet on any day that ends in Y. It's just to save your problems. Talk to someone.
I think I read a quote from you, which I think is so true, and I experience it here, although my town's a little bit bigger than Harvey. You said it doesn't, like this, if there's 2,000 people or whatever in Harvey, but if you've got your 10, that's all you need. And I think that's true in any city or town, isn't it? You just need your group of people that you can feel accepted by and supported by, and that's really all any of us need, isn't it?
Exactly. And look, so now I've got these group of friends and we can do anything together. We holiday together, some of us, we dine together every couple of weeks, and we have this coffee club. And it's amazing, that those 10 friends, I say it's two handfuls of friends, which are lifesavers. They really are. We've all had a little ups and downs with a loss in the family or something like that, but once we get there at 9:14 every morning, it's open slather.
9:14.
Yeah, 9:14. Otherwise, if you say 9:15, they get there late, but 9:14 they remember, you see. So it's one of those things that you just come back to earth and your Tiny Holly or your Billy Smith, and, for that half an hour that we're there, there's no drama.
It's all about connection.
Exactly. Connection and networking.
So I think we might finish up with talking about your experience in the R.M.Williams workshop, because you've been doing a little bit of collaboration with R.M.Williams. Tell us all about that.
So I suppose I'm lucky enough. One of my good friends over here, Ben Dwyer, I used to work with at Harvey Beef when it was owned by the Green family, and I said to him a couple of years ago, because I can't wear my RMs, and I've got 6 pairs of RMs in my cupboard, and anyone who's got RMs knows what the value of those, and if you can't wear them, well, I felt naked when I'm wearing anything else other than my RMs, which is not a good thought. So I said to him, can you put me in contact? So he put me in contact with a couple of the crew over there, and I ended up talking to Tara, the COO, and we got a bit of a relationship over the email. And then Nicola Forrest got involved as well, and she saw some of the emails and said that, Tiny does a bit of work over here for charities and we need to look after him. So I thought, gee, it doesn't get much better than that. So I've gone from Ben to Tara to Nicola. So I actually drove the Nullarbor and went over there to have a bit of a look around and a bit of a fitting to see what I wanted.
You went to Adelaide?
Yeah, I went to Adelaide, and that was, unreal driving across anyway on my own. It was, just one of those things that I've always wanted to do. And Tara and Steve and the crew, they were just amazing at RMs. I did the tour of the boot line, clothing line, and also the belts and the whips and all that sort of thing. And it was just, I remember as a young fella, my first buy was $15.15, and it was from the R.M.Williams catalogue for a hat that I saved up with 1, 2s and 5-cent pieces with my late auntie who oversaw that bit. And hand on heart, that was one of the best things that I'd ever done to see from when I was 8 or 9 to get that mail order hat from R.M.Williams. And here I am, 50 odd years later and walking through the store as if to say, have a look at this sort of thing. But it was just amazing to see the craftsmanship that goes into this company, and whether it's a hanky or a shirt or a belt or a magnificent pair of craftsman's boots, everyone's so dedicated and so loyal to, wanting to work and working so well where they are.
What did they fix you up with?
Well, we hope to get them this week, actually. Brand new pair of Craftsman's, stamped and everything with Tiny and that on the heel. And, so because the way I walk now, my shoes have got to be flat. So my RMs have only got a very small heel on them anyway, but at this stage they'll be even a lesser heel and more flat, because on the current ones I feel like I'm in stilettos. So, but look, fingers crossed and all that sort of thing. It's in pretty good hands, so I don't have a lot of doubt that it'll be spot on like all the RM stuff is.
So just to be flatter, that was the only adjustment they had to make?
Flatter, because the size 10.5 would still fit my, onto my prosthetic feet and those sorts of things. So it's only the flatter, still get them on and off, no worries at all.
Ah, yes. Well, we'll have to get a photo of you in those special RMs for Outback magazine. It is sort of almost part of the auctioneers' uniform, isn't it? RMs.
Oh, look, it is. I've got a pair in the cupboard there. They're 37 years old. I paid about $450 back then, or whatever the price was. So it's about $17 a year they've cost me. But by gee, they've done some good work. 174 kilos carting me around on the rail on that. They've done a great job.
That probably wraps things up. It's been really inspiring to hear about your journey, and I'm sure a lot of people will listen to this and take inspiration from it as well, Tiny. There was one thing I was going to ask you about. Can you give us a little bit of I don't even know what the word is, an auctioneer's spiel, I suppose?
Right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you the R.M.Williams boots there. What are they going to make? They're going to make, what, $500 or $600? 500 to go. Got to bid 5, but I've got to bid 600 now. 7 I got. I got 700 now. I got to bid 8. Now 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 I got to bid 9. I got to bid 9. I got to bid 1,000. God, $1,000 gone, sold. Thank you very much. The bloke over there with the no legs.
Absolute bargain.
Exactly. So
great. So thank you so much for your time, Tiny, and really look forward to hearing about how you go with those boots.
Beautiful. Jerry, if I could say one thing other than thanks is
absolutely,
whoever's listening to this, maybe promise me one thing that they'll ring someone today or tomorrow that they haven't spoken to for a week or a fortnight or whatever. Just say g'day and are you going, are you doing all right? Because we have the Are You OK Day, which is a tremendous thing, but unfortunately depression doesn't hit us just one day a year. So look after someone, look after your family. That one phone call can really make a difference. And here we are, a non-legged auctioneer with proof that one phone call saved his life.
Great advice, Tiny. Thank you. We should all do that. Thanks again for your time and thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Terry.
Oh, and I also should say before we let you go that you can read about Tiny as well, a bit more about his journey in issue 162 of Outback Magazine, which of course you can get at all good newsagents and at outbackmag.com.au. Thank you, Tiny.
Thank you very much, Terry. All the best.